week for Tulane Green Wave celebrating the 20th anniversary. It's been that long of their undefeated team, 12-0 in 1998. They finished ranked 7th in the nation in the final Associated Press football poll, and they're honoring that team this week as well. They should. Tommy Bowden will be here, and we're blessed to have a couple of players from that team here to reminisce briefly, but also to touch on the current Tulane team as well. First gentleman, St. Charles Catholic High School, Tulane, offensive lineman, was excellent as part of that team. Now part of the law firm of Flowers, Maselli, Parkerson. The other was a former star at Archbishop Shaw, had a chance to do many of his games, and then of course at Tulane as well. Up front, where it matters, where you win. Both of these guys were those guys, and a big reason why Tulane went undefeated. Please give a warm quarterback club welcome to Jimmy Ordeneaux and Torie Taullie, Tulane University. Gentlemen.
I guess I'll kick it off and then turn it over to my much better teammate, Torie, after that. But first start with the tough news, the hard loss this week for Tulane. I read Mr. Daniels' piece. I think he kind of hit it on the nail on the head there. Played a very good team. That was a team that beat Louisville last year with a Heisman Trophy winner quarterback. They beat Texas A&M in the bowl game. They returned 10 starters on offense and had a very impressive freshman quarterback working for them. Nonetheless, Tulane was in a tie ball game with a minute left, first and 10 on Wake's 36-yard line. You know, I mean, I think if you ask Coach Fritz if that's the situation you would have signed up for before the game, he would have signed up for that. Just an odd game. Tulane didn't run a single play in the red zone, yet punted 7 times from opposing territory. It's sort of like would easily get the ball into Wake territory, and then whether it's penalty or a bust assignment or whatever the case may be, you know, kind of started working backwards. Didn't even get an opportunity to kick a field goal. I mean, if you look at each situation, I think one of them was a 4th and 4 where they decided to punt. Otherwise, they were all 4th and 8 or longer. So you kind of in that no man's land, and oftentimes he chose to punt. So disappointing loss, but they got a tough opponent coming up here with Nichols, 4-hour reunion. Nichols obviously beat Kansas. Coach Rebo, I've known my whole life. Coach Rebo is a hell of a football coach, has been successful everywhere he's run a program, and it's no different in Thibodaux right now. I mean, you know, beat a Division I program this week, but if you look at Fourcade and their receivers and Sully Lesh on the defensive line and a bunch of these kids, they're all guys who probably should be playing FBS ball. They're playing at FCS. They're playing with a chip on their shoulder. They're going to come ready for a fight on Saturday. Hopefully our festivities don't distract us too much and we're there to engage. So talking about that, reminiscent about the 98 season, you know, first of all, with respect to this game, I think we're going to have something like 60 coaches and players back. Is the last count is about 60 to 65. That includes Coach Bowden's coming back, Coach Rodriguez is coming back. So I think in Coach Rod's case, this is going to be his first time back on campus. Coach Bowden came back a couple years ago. But you know, if the guys are not coaching in college football or high school football right now, they'll probably be back. You know, Sean's tied up, but for the most part, Jamaican and PJ and a bunch of these guys, everybody's going to be in. So if you're looking for something to do on Saturday, you want to celebrate a bunch of old guys, please come by and celebrate with us. We'll be out in the quad and trying to behave ourselves, trying as best we can. But looking back on the experience, guys, I think it's amazing how college football landscapes changed. And one thing I'll say is, what was so incredible back then, and many people in this room would recognize it. Nowadays, with the internet and sort of how much the media has been broken out into so many different segments, you got this whole P5 and all of this stuff, you know. But back then, you had college game day. On game day, on Saturdays, there was one place you would look for your information on college football, and it was that college game day program. And that's still going strong. But back then, you couldn't go check a podcast, and you couldn't go look at, 35 different newspapers and their articles of the game. You went to game day. And I guess it was starting that Southern Miss game, but from every Saturday there on, Tulane had the college football world, we had its notice, because every Saturday on game day, Lee Corso was there saying, you know, my boys from Tulane, they're going to do it again. You know, so it started with that Southern Miss game. He predicted that we'd beat them. That was a big, you know, boogeyman off our back. And then, you know, we kind of were on there all the way through, culminating with the end of the regular season La Tech. I mean, I was at Tulane in the Syracuse, the end of the season in '96 with Syracuse. And Kenny, I know some of you boys were there. It might have been 5,000 people in that building. And in that La Tech game, when we looked up, and we just started building slowly over 2 years, but those lower two decks of the Superdome were completely full. You know, and that place was on fire. And we put on a show. That team had Troy Edwards and Tim Rattay were playing against. They scored a good bit too, but we did not. We scored a touchdown on every single drive except the end of the half where we missed a field goal, and the end of the game when we took a knee. Every other time Tulane's offense took over the ball, we scored a touchdown. And so that was sort of the culmination of all that work was just that performance we put on. I think it was 63-33 may have been the final. But I hear from family and friends, look, there was only one ticket window open out there and people were trying to get in. They couldn't get in until the second quarter of the game. It was Thanksgiving night. That's probably my fondest memory. My fondest non-memory would be on Beale Street and the hotel after. What was the hotel with the Ducks? I don't remember any of the results after. I cannot be responsible for anything that happened after the game where we finished off the 12-0 on New Year's Eve in Memphis. But I do generally remember being really in a really happy mood for that New Year's. So I guess that would I'd say a fondest non-memory. So with that, I'll turn it over to my teammate Torie. Let him kind of tell you his story, and appreciate your time. Come on out Saturday.
Appreciate it, Jimmy. So thanks, Ken, for having me. You know, a couple things that stand out to me about that team is toughness and resiliency. You know, when I was my true freshman year, the '98 season, and man, you learned how tough these guys were and how hungry they were to win. And if you were going to contribute to that team, you better be tough and you better step up pretty quick. I mean, we went at each other that camp like I'd never seen before. Guys, you know, on the field, fist fighting, and Coach Bowden let you fight. You know, he'd move the drill up 5 yards and say they'd stop when they finished. You know, so you kind of built that toughness that you know, you wouldn't survive if you weren't tough. The other thing is resiliency. You know, the things that we overcame that season that most people don't even realize. You know, the week before opening game against Cincinnati, we had 7 guys get declared academically ineligible. Guys that were eligible based on NCAA standards, but not Tulane standards. One was a starter, our starting right tackle, and we just, you know, filed in. You know, I think week 2 we had a flood against for the SMU game. A couple guys. Dennis O'Sullivan was one. He was a starting defensive lineman, probably one of the best players on the defense. Didn't make the trip because his house was flooded. He couldn't get out to make the bus in time. We had to leave him. A couple other guys who played a lot as well didn't make that trip. You know, next week we had after the Navy game, we had a hurricane evacuation. You know, team kind of split up and we evacuated to you know, wherever we were going with our families, and said be back on, you know, Tuesday or Wednesday. And that was coming up into the Southern Miss game, which we found out that when we came back on Tuesday, Sean King broke his hand against Navy. That it went all weekend undiagnosed because it was just kind of like, oh, it's sore, but I'm all right. And you think about the resiliency of that team and the things that we went through. I mean, look, it's Tulane, guys. The world did not want us to go undefeated, but we overcame it week in and week out, and it was a special group to be around. And when you know, I carry so many lessons from that team and from that group with me today. You know, I think about the toughness and the things that we overcome, that we face in our everyday lives. And I think, you know, I used to carry my student ID from my freshman year, and it was we'd gotten back from Covington, and they just shaved our heads, and my head shaved. I got like claws going down my neck. I got bruises across my forehead. I got a scratch here. I looked like a criminal. I mean, it was a mugshot, my student ID picture, and I carried that picture for years and years until eventually it fell apart, and it was just perspective for me. It was that, you know what, nothing we do in life will ever be that tough. Nothing we ever do will last forever. We just got to fight through those tough times, and there was a great prize at the end. And you talk about resiliency and the things that they overcome, and you know, you think about, you know, living in New Orleans, the things we've had to overcome, and how we can, you know, look back at those lessons we learned as, you know, as an 18 or 19-year-old, and that certainly carries with me today, and things that I try to, you know, to preach with my kids and my family. So we're excited to celebrate this weekend, we really are. I'm hoping that we don't act like we're 19 and 20 still and realize, you know, we don't have that stamina anymore to go, you know, 2 or 3 nights strong like that. But we got lots planned. You know, it starts Friday at noon and we should be wrapping up Sunday morning sometime in the wee hours. So hopefully we can all make it through. But we'd love to have Yeoman full Saturday night for that game because it's a special group, it's a special team for not just Tulane fans, but for the city because we represent the city and we represented the state well, especially that year. All right, thanks.